This is Chippy from CarryPad at Mobile World Congress Barcelona. Day 0, sun is shining, and I've got the first interview with Peter Biddle, General Manager of AppHub. That's the application ecosystem framework that goes on top of Windows and maybe other operating systems. We're going to talk about that over the next 10 minutes. Peter, thanks for spending time with us, and I know you've got a busy week ahead, so we're just going to do 10 minutes. I'm going to go over a bunch of things that I've got written down here, but let's just take one step back. AppHub has been available for a year now on Windows.
Correct.
How's it been going? Can we have some sort of figures from you?
Sure.
Some idea of whether it's achieved targets or not?
Yeah, so we went into beta at CES a year and a month ago. And a few months after that, that was a Windows release specifically targeting netbooks. And then we did a Moblin release a few months later. So both of those releases are currently, obviously we've done huge iterations on them, but both of those are currently available. Since then we've expanded out. We're in the process of expanding out to do additional form factors for Windows PCs. So we are doing netbooks, but we're unofficially, secret, you can't tell anybody, very close to doing, sort of full, being able to say that we're a full laptop supporting framework as well.
So expanding up in terms of Windows.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. And we've gotten, one of the things we've definitely learned since we started doing this is that, there's a lot of interest, and we're hearing from our store partners that they want to put it on everything. So they're saying, they want to put it on netbooks and laptops and desktops and all-in-ones. They want to put it sort of on full product line. Which, if you're a retailer, if you think about it, well, it makes a lot of sense, right? If you think about what retailers are really trying to do and the sort of disruptive transformation that the whole sort of ecosystem is undergoing, that makes a lot of sense. Some numbers. So we have 32. Well, actually, let's step back. We have 500,000 developers that we actively manage through the multiple sort of Intel developer programs. One of the things people don't realize about Intel is we have probably one of the top 3 in size and engagement software sort of support organizations on the planet, right? Same categories as a Google or an Apple or a Microsoft or an Oracle. And we've been doing that for 30 years, right? Now, apps for us and consumer software is a new focus. So that's something that we were not addressing. So of those 500,000, what we're doing now is taking sort of the things we know how to do well there and applying the appropriate ones to a new developer constituency. So that developer group we track is about 32,000 developers who are part of the AppHub program, and then the fully registered developers. So these are developers who actually fill out the tax documents, which is a great sort of leveling checkpoint, right? Because it means they have to go to the post office, and I don't know about you, but I
some effort needed there.
Yeah, that's work.
I like that.
That's a lot of work. So 16,000 of them have gone to the post office and signed the tax documentation in order to do that. So we count probably more than 16,000 now. That number is shifting upwards. We have I believe over 2,000 applications in the catalog today, and that number has doubled every quarter since last January. So the ramp on that is quite good. We're feeling, I think, really quite pleased with what has been happening with developers over the past year.
Sure. So you have achieved your targets for the last year of AppHub on Windows, but moving forward we've got MeeGo. Are you going to announce AppHub on MeeGo this week at the Mobile World Congress?
So we don't announce until we launch, right? We sort of have taken a lot of lessons from some really sort of industry veterans in that space, people like Apple and Google, who sort of launch and announce at the exact same time, we're super excited about supporting MeeGo.
So it's still on the roadmap.
But it's still absolutely, yeah. Not only on the roadmap, but multiple variants of it. So I know it's no secret that Intel is interested in doing a really kick-ass tablet, right? And clearly we're going to be part of that.
So when that happens, when you get AppHub on MeeGo, What's the sort of effort required for the devs to bring their apps over to MeeGo from the Windows versions?
Yeah, so it depends on. There's an engineering side to that question, and there's a design side to the question. I'm going to give you a really fuzzy crap answer, but it's the truth, and that is it depends. It can be anything from a few hours worth of work to months worth of work, depending on what you created the application in and how targeted it is at the form factor and the platform you developed it for. So if you created, let's say, on one end of the spectrum, sort of the most extreme example of the highest labor would be if you created an application that was specifically targeted for a pointer metaphor, right? So you're assuming that there's a mouse and a pointer. Landscape, a 16 by 9 or 16 by 9.5 aspect ratio, and an internet connection, and you wanted to optimize for things like graphics acceleration and hardware acceleration and parallelism and threading, right? An app like that is probably going to be written in C, right? And then ported. And that's going to be a fairly non-trivial task to get to something that is lighter weight processor, et cetera, et cetera. So that the engineering and the design of that is going to be pretty significant. But most of the people who have apps in, or a lot of the people developers who have apps in AppUp today, are writing to runtime layers, and they're writing in a way that is quite portable. So. As an example, we had I won't speak for them, so I won't mention their name, but a developer we've all heard of, right? And their porting effort to go from they were going from the iPhone, I believe, into AppUp onto the PC was incredibly fast. I mean, it was like they had something working in a day, and they submitted something in a week.
So let's assume that a developer sees low barriers for the technical side of things and the design side of things. What is going to drive them to bring their apps to MeeGo? What are the key drivers for developers there to bring their apps to MeeGo?
Right. Well, I think there's a bunch of factors, and I don't want to sort of speak for what every developer is going to want. But I think if you sort of look back at what have we always wanted to do in the combination of AppUp and great Intel hardware and great operating systems like MeeGo, and of course we do a ton of work on making Windows a better operating system. We have a long partnership with Microsoft there as well. So I think the key things are that we have an open, really flexible business model and framework. We seek to partner, so we support multiple programming environments, multiple web services. You can go native, you can go web-based, you can go with a runtime. We've got a great program we're doing with Adobe around Air, the codenamed Melrose, which I think it's now called the Adobe Developer Portal, right? It publishes straight into AppUp, right? So, and those are Flash developers, right? So, Flash developers, one of the things about Flash that's so amazing about it is that you can bang stuff out that's quite professional looking and quite robust really quickly. Well, Air basically gives you that outside of the browser, and we support that, right? Unlike some other development environments, we're not seeking to say that the only way to do it is with this runtime, right? Yeah. Runtime A or runtime B or native, or we currently support Java, .NET, native Windows, native MeeGo, Qt, and let's see, I might be Air. Did I say Air? Air. Yeah. Yep. So we think it's critically important that to move going forward, developers should be thinking about users, usage models, and form factors. They should not be like 10 years ago, you got up in the morning and you were a Java developer, or you were a C# developer, or you were a C developer, or whatever developer, right? Now, then 2 years ago, you got up in the morning and maybe you were, an iPhone developer or an Android developer. I think now, like today, you get up in the morning and you are a web-centric consumer service developer.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of developers say that if I've learned one environment and one language, I can damn well learn another one tomorrow. It's not that difficult now. We've got to that point where you can switch between environments. Peter, I have to ask you, after Nokia's announcements this week about Qt. Qt is one of the application development environments that you've chosen for MeeGo and AppHub ecosystem.
Yep.
Does MeeGo's announcement this week,
Nokia's
announcement, the owners of Qt,
right,
affect anything here, do you think?
Well, so that's an interesting, like use of words, right? Qt is an open source project. They own the brand, right? And they purchased Trolltech, and they have a bunch of great engineers working on it. But it's open source,
right.
So sort of from that perspective, the world owns Qt. And
but in terms of contributions to Qt going forward, are we going to see less from Nokia?
I can't speak for Nokia, right? And I think I never would, and if I do, you should slap me. But we like Qt. We think it's a great development environment. We think there's been some really great investment in the device-centric parts of it. QML we think is pretty cool. It's got some great services infrastructure. It is clearly, I think, has been built over the past few years, having learned the lessons of what is and is not working, for example, in Symbian, right? So the scars of what has happened in Symbian over the past 5 years are there too. So I mean, any more than if I don't know. If Linus Torvalds quit working on Linux tomorrow, would that be the death of Linux?
Good question.
Of course not.
All right, a couple more quick questions. I've got a couple of questions from readers as well. But first of all, AppHub is a delivery channel. Do you see other content going through that delivery channel? I'm talking about films, music, books. Do you see that it could be used for that?
Absolutely, and stay tuned. Yeah.
Thank you. A question from a reader, Rich Arbu on Twitter. Is AppUp for handsets too, or is it just for tablets and netbooks?
No, it'll definitely. I mean, we see AppUp going all the places that users, developers, consumers, and our hardware and store partners want it to go. So we, clearly on clamshells and PCs and tablets and handsets. But IVI, Smart TV, that's the beauty of Intel, right? Is that the underlying architecture is the same. So anything that we build from an engineering perspective to support one is easy to extend to support another.
And you'll have to answer this very quickly because we're running out of time. And it's a question from Chippy on Twitter. How does open source affect the delivery of closed content? Do content owners worry about open source or the channel running through an open source environment?
I think content providers worry about preserving the sanctity of the business model they count on. There's nothing about proprietary software or open source software that is better or worse at that. Some of it's easier with one, than the other. But certainly, if you're a content provider, you want to think when you get yourself locked into a proprietary stack, what happens when the proprietary stack provider changes their minds about their business terms in a couple of years. Right. If you're an open source, hey, you can always just take the software and keep running it yourself.